You know, if you love a spirited discussion on AI, you are going to love our conversation today. Joining us is our facilitator, Raul Grunberg. Now, he's a proven executive with best practices and worldwide vertical experience. Welcome, Raul.
Thank you, Gene. I look forward to working with you on this theme and the coming themes that we're going to have down the road here.
Now, I know in the past, AI, we talked about generally speaking. It seems like it had a little bit more of a fearful worry, except in this theme, which is talking about the application in mobile strategies. It sounds like it's getting a little bit of a better reception here. Tell us what we were trying to figure out here in theme number 3.
So the question that we asked was, how have the innovations to integrate AI into mobile strategies changed, improved, or harmed the customer experience today? And we were really exploring, we know how much mobile has come into our lives and how AI in various applications can be used with mobile, how that's affected the consumer experience.
So is it helping us? Is it hurting us? I look forward to getting into that. I know the panel was really involved this time. Let's talk about some of the people on the panel.
So Mike, Jack, Jason, Donald in particular, with also Andre, Joanna, Mark, Corolla, and Jenna, were high contributors for this and came away with terrific contributions that I think the listeners will be fascinated by.
Let's get into your executive summary, because I know in the past, again, like I said, AI seemed like people were a little standoffish, that there was still a lot of risk associated. But as I'm looking at your executive summary, it seems like in the mobile platform, AI is a little bit warmer in the reception. Is that right?
I think you're correct. So trying to summarize it in one sentence, I described it as creating all kinds of smart apps. And we know how apps in our life on all kinds of devices are being utilized. So smart apps using AI on mobile devices in particular is dramatically improving the customer experience by enhancing personalized convenience so they feel valued and are known. And when you think about being valued and being known, I mean, those are the two tickets to a great customer satisfaction end result. So going beyond my one sentence summary, the listeners should be aware of, mobile capabilities paired with a deep understanding of customer data and analytical power can offer a highly personalized, right time, right offer experience. The next thought that would support this is what's called deep linking. And that really comes down to the ability of brands to use customer data across multiple platforms, stages for a customer journey and needs. And it's a terrific thing that will be further discussed in our takeaways. AI plus mobile unlocks information about the context behind people's behaviors. The continual connectivity means that companies can now get more information about their customers than they've ever had before. And finally, the downside, if there is one, is it becomes exponentially harder to create loyal customers with all of these things going on because the bar keeps getting raised higher and higher. And this, all it takes is a little minor slip up and you lose that customer. Also, people should think about that whatever mobile devices you're using and apps, make sure that there's adequate protection of privacy and security in order to ensure the right results.
So, Raul, these are 4 great key points we're going to get into. Let's start with key point number 1, which is AI into mobile strategies as an idea.
So my key takeaway for this key point is that AI for the customer is not only for business, it's basically for everything in order to enhance that customer experience. So you're not just coaxing a customer to do the business's bidding, you're really adopting that customer and meeting their wants and their needs. And he gave several retail experiences that he's had that he thought were good examples to illustrate that. And then Jack contributed the topic of deep linking, which I mentioned earlier. And deep linking actually goes back, started gaining prominence in 2016 and is now being further refined. And this is really important because, we're going to be able to engage all kinds of services, within, let's say we talk about like Lyft or Open Table. And while we have those things as two things that are related but separate in separate companies, the deep linking would allow consumer or the customer to be able to link all of those needs. So transportation, dining, all together without having to go to different platforms to do it.
So in key point number 2, you do talk about the specific strengths that come from integrating AI into your mobile strategy, right?
Exactly. So, Jason brought up that wearables, particularly in use for mobile. Now, we don't really consider our phones as being wearables, but there's all kinds of things that, bioengineering. We talk about like the introduction of the Apple Watch, the iWatch, versus the iPhone as being a wearable versus a standalone mobile device. And when those things are embedded with various mobile apps and Bluetooth, and you get, headphones, all of a sudden now you have like a virtual walking office, using wearables in that kind of case. And then Donald, talked about how AI has changed for the better. And so he had personal observations on really the convenience and how it's a natural tool to engage consumers, and whether somebody is tech savvy or not, the ability to be able to like speak into your cell phone and use these apps. And it goes back to our previous themes about visual search or voice activation, how great that is.
Well, these are great strengths, and they certainly are things we're all going to benefit from and will appreciate the convenience. But key point number 3 talks a little bit to threats that some of us can be fearful of. Talk about that.
So, Donald tends to be a little bit of our pragmatist. So he looked at both the glass half full and the glass half empty. He said, okay, so let's look at, AI for the worse. And he asked the question, can you always lead a horse to water? So again, we kind of go back to some of the generational, issues about it, where somebody might feel that they're on a scavenger hunt, and trying to find products. It makes it more complicated. I'm not sure, not everybody is well suited to use some of these devices, but, it just takes time for people to learn it. And then Jack came in and he thought that bots were a really good idea of about, helping with the sort of getting to know those things. And ironically, our next theme will be on chatbots. So we'll talk about that.
So, Raul, we've talked about the threats. Is that also a part of the weaknesses of AI?
Yes. So the next key point is the weaknesses from integrating AI into mobile strategies. And Andre and Donald made the two most prominent key points or key takeaways for that. One being that, if you have a solution that's composing multiple algorithms and models and each doing something different and using its own specific data, you might have problems with connecting the data or losing data or the latency of it. He was worried about the unintended consequences from that. It was part of a, sort of a transformation question in a bigger context that we were discussing. And then Donald brought up something I mentioned to you earlier relating to with Jack, that, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't necessarily make them drink. And so there's still sort of this underlying question with all of this technology and all of these great things, will people use it? Are they comfortable with it? Maybe it just takes time. And that's where I brought up that several of them had mentioned chatbots. And chatbots will be our next theme going forward.
I'm really looking forward to that conversation because if there's one thing I've heard a lot of controversy about, it's this idea of the chatbots, right?
Exactly.
A great panel. It's really hard to say who contributed the most because I know you had a lot of top performers, but tell us about the top three experts here.
On a continuing basis, Alex, Jack, and Donald have been our top contributors, but as you've heard, the names brought up for this theme, we have new contributors, and they're doing a great job.
You're doing a great job too, Raul. Great job facilitating this and bringing us this information. And who knew that the mobile world would be so warm to AI? I would say a little more warm than the regular laptop kind of world, but it's good to know. Look forward to our next conversation. It's Raul Grunberg. He is the proven executive with best practices and worldwide vertical expertise, and we will talk next time.
Thank you, Gene. It's always a pleasure working with you, and thank you for your help on letting me explain how our theme number 3 is meaningful for our listeners.